Have you wondered what financial advisors actually think about finances? This is your sneak peek at the conversations within Financial Design Studio. Michelle Smollenberger, the CEO here, will be your host as you go behind the designs.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today, it's back to school season, so we are talking all things education funding, and I think everybody's getting these lists, so it's a great time. It's very applicable because everybody's thinking about it. So today I've got a couple guests with me, and first I've got Steve Smollenberger, our tax specialist. Welcome, Steve.
Great. Thanks for having me on the show, Michelle.
Yeah, you're welcome. Glad to have you back. And then we have a special guest today because she is still out of school because it's summer break, Emma Smollenberger. Welcome, Emma.
Thanks.
You glad to be here?
Definitely.
Yeah, how's your summer going?
It's been really fun. I've been on swim team and I've done a couple of sport camps.
Ooh, so are you enjoying the things you picked?
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah? What's your favorite thing you've been doing?
Probably swim team. PPD Tiger Sharks.
All right, woohoo, PPD.
Palatine swim team.
That's right,
Yep.
Swim fast, live slow. I love that. All right, well, that has been fun. It's been fun to watch you make progress, too, and kind of get faster and faster. You're doing a great job. So that's fun. But today we were kind of talking about college funding. We said, Emma, we're going to record a podcast today. And we started talking about the questions for the podcast. And you started asking some good questions. And we said, wait a second, those questions are on the list. Maybe we should just have you come in and ask us yourself. And you said, okay, sounds good, right? So today, that's exactly what we're talking through. We're going to have some questions from Emma, and then also just start to kind of answer these questions and really walk you through this thought process as a parent. How do we fund this? How should we be thinking about it? So that is the progress. That's exactly what we're going to walk you through. And questions within that, how should I think about it? How to save, how much to save, those kind of things. So let's just, I guess, jump right in. Steve, when we found out we were pregnant, or once Emma was born, I think naturally as parents, you have these thoughts. So walk us through, kind of describe some of those things that we were talking about. How do you think about this?
Yeah, is it a boy? Is it a girl? Where are we going to be living? What are they going to be like when they grow up? What are they going to be excited about and want to study? Is it going to be in-state, out-of-state? All of those things. Would they go to our alma maters? There's so many fun thoughts and discussions that stem from just education in general.
Yeah, some of them also seem like so far away. So I think this is where it's also hard, because you're trying to plan for something so far out. So
that
I feel like
sneaks up on you at the same time.
Exactly. So we get this question from clients. I guess when a client's like, how should I start thinking about this? Kind of describe how we walk clients through that.
Yeah, so when we're sitting down with a couple, we're asking them what was their educational experience. Meaning, did their parents pay for some, all, or none of their education? Were they required to work and fund part of it or all of it? Did they have scholarships? Did they have to take out loans? Kind of asking them what was their experience. Did they like it or not? Sometimes we'll have one spouse that the parents paid for all of it, and the other spouse, they had to pay for all of it.
Yeah.
So very, very different experiences.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like, I like that, or I did not like that. I want my child to experience this because here's what I experienced.
Yeah, because I think sometimes what's interesting about that is they're trying to answer it for their child. But I think in bringing it back and asking them, well, what did you experience? What happens is usually then we say, what did you like about that? What didn't you like about it?
Yeah.
So that's usually where I feel like sometimes it just kind of, you land like somewhere in the middle. Like that's where I think most parents kind of aim for, unless you have like a really strong opinion. No, I had everything paid for and I want to do that.
Yeah, this is one when we're sitting down, putting out a plan or building a plan with clients. They're looking to us for answers, but we're looking to them for answers in this case. There's no one right way or wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
It's kind of, what do you want? And then we'll tell you the best way to do that. So we're kind of flipping the switch. We're throwing it to them, asking them a bunch of questions for answers, and kind of helping them think through it.
Yeah, so that's a great, I think that right there is like the perfect starting point. So if you are thinking about how do I fund my children's college education, you as parents ask yourselves, what did I experience? What did we have to do? And that'll give you a really great starting point to talk through what I liked about that, what I didn't like about that, and now what do we want our kids to experience based on what we decide to do for them. I think that's a great starting point. All right. Which, let's just say, I guess, between your experience and mine. So your experience in funding college, just so we kind of help people as we walk through kind of what we've decided to do. Let's talk through, okay, our answers for that. So what would you say as far as like your college funding experience for you personally?
Yeah, so I, growing up, I worked, I was saving for college, and then because I caddied at a local country club for 12 plus years, I received the Chick Evans Scholarship, or the Evans Scholar, which was a full ride to school. I went to Northern Illinois, and this scholarship funded all of that. So while I was thinking I would have to either work before or during, even after school to pay for it, the scholarship filled in those holes.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Evans Scholar was a huge blessing in my life.
Yeah. So you were saving for it. So you had money saved, but then college was fully paid for. So you didn't need those funds.
Exactly.
All right. So we're going to circle back to that because that's kind of one of the reasons of like, wait, okay, I experienced this. So then, because that comes up with how do we save and what do we save into?
Yeah. And so what was your experience?
Yeah. So for me, I worked through college and I did take student loans out and paid those. So for me, it was the opposite. I did pay for all of my college, which was a combination of work. I lived at a scholarship house for 4-H, so the living was cheaper, and then I had student loans for my tuition.
Yeah. So while I went to an in-state Northern Illinois school, you went to
I went
Kansas State.
Yep, yeah. Kansas State University, and then and then funded them basically through scholarships and working. So I worked a few different jobs, and so we basically had exact, maybe opposite college funding experiences.
Yeah.
So
and to add to mine, I also started my first year. I started at a local junior college, so that was something where I was living at home, would go to school, come home, work. So yeah, so it doesn't have to be 4 years at a away school. It can be in-state, local, junior college.
Yeah, which is exactly, and that's even some of the conversations we've had with Emma. We've even had these conversations with Emma as we kind of start to talk about some of these things. So as we've talked about it, kind of for Emma, so if we say, just like we said, for most other people, when you start to have this conversation, you might find that what you land on is like, this is what we want to do, is a combination of the two of you, your experiences. So if we were to say that, we've kind of said, oh, it would be great expense-wise if Emma started at like a junior college, did a year or two, and then went on to a 4-year school. So Emma, you've heard us say that, right? We've kind of talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of tell us what you're thinking, and I know things could change. It's years from now,
So
but
you're 10.
what are you thinking right now?
So I kind of want to go to K-State like how you did. I don't really know why, though. I just kind of like the school, and I like how it's set up.
Yeah, you've been to K-State. I took you once. I said, let's just walk around campus, which was fun. And then Harper's really close. So there's a community college close. We've also talked about.
Then I also kind of want to go to Harper because I think they might have a swim team because they have a pool.
Oh, sure.
And I would probably want to be in a swim team like for my college years.
Sure. So you might do maybe like a year or two there, and then you could go somewhere like K-State, maybe. And you're 10, right? So this could all change, right?
It's kind of like the funny conversations you have in the car or the interesting conversations you have with your kids. Like we drive past Harper College every day.
Yeah.
And you see it. And you're like, oh, what school is that, Daddy? And I tell you it's a college, and then I tell you about it, and you're like, oh, I could maybe go there, and I could save money. And then when I get older, you said I could go to K-State where Mommy went, and I could live with Grandma and Grandpa in Kansas and go to school.
Yeah. So I feel like all of these have come up, like all of these kind of funny ways of where could I go, things like that, right?
But you were even being conscious about how do you do it the most effectively.
Yeah.
All right. So as we've talked about that, Emma, this would be great. First question. So as we talk about where you're going to go, how much that's going to cost, why don't you throw out one of those questions?
So one of my questions was, should the kid pay for the expenses or should the parents pay for all of it?
Yeah,
Okay.
you asked that this morning when we were kind of getting ready at home and getting here. Mommy and Daddy were like, yeah, we're talking about how to pay for school. And you're like, well, that's great that you guys can save, but if I go to a different school that's more expensive, You kind of ask the question, do I need to pay or does mommy and daddy pay?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a great question, and we said that's what we're going to talk about today. So, so as we think about this, for me, it was I paid for everything, Daddy saved for it, and then also family contributed to it, like over the years. So what we did for Emma, as we think about this, is we've started saving. So when she was really young, we kind of said, okay, wait, when she's a baby, all of those expenses we know we're going to pay for. So any money that someone gifted to you, like your first birthday or when you were born, if you have a baby shower, things like that. If there was money that we didn't really need to buy baby things, we said we're just going to put this in an account for Emma. We're just going to set this aside, because in the future, this could be used for anything. So that's how we kind of said, okay, so in the very beginning, when you were first born, like couldn't spend money. So we said, wait, let's put this over here in this account. And it's just continued growing because we haven't needed it for anything yet. So that could be used for college. So that was one very early thing as you have kids. Like that's an early way to say, okay, we could start saving for that. And you're not necessarily taking it out of cash flow because those are gifts being given to you that if you don't need to spend on anything, you can actually set it aside to be used later.
And that's kind of a planning area. That's one thing I think young couples with their first child kind of get hung up on is where do I save? What's the right account? So there's really a couple options. You can set up just a simple investment account, like a custodial account for the child. You can put it in your own account, an investment account, or even a savings account. You could set up what's called a college savings plan. The tax code is 529 or 529 plan. There's all different options to save. Some have benefits, some have limitations. So I think it's easy to get hung up on what's the right account and then not do anything.
So I think for us, kind of to answer Emma's question really quick, was we like the combination. So kind of like we're saving now, and then we'll keep saving to that, and then family can keep adding. So we've got this account. Anyone can add to it anytime you get gifts. You can save into it if you're working. And then when you get to college, it's kind of we'll see, is there enough? And now what combination do we need to fund the rest? Or is that going to be you working? Or are you going to get scholarships, things like that? So we're not trying to overfund it. We're trying to just save as we go along, right? And then when we get there, we'll see what it actually costs.
So when mommy and daddy were deciding about your education in the future, we said we're not going to pay for all of it. We're not going to pay for none of it. We're going to pay for some of it. Because we want you to understand that we value your education and who you're going to be. But we also want you to value your education. So you can't just expect mommy and daddy to pay for school and then you go away and have fun and don't take it seriously. So we want you to work, and we want you to get scholarships, and we want you to get loans if that's needed to pay for your part.
What do you think about that?
Good idea.
Yeah, you like it? Okay. I think you're willing to work a little bit, right? You're willing to contribute towards it?
Yes.
No, that's good. All right. That was a great question. So now that we've talked about kind of how much we're saving, who's going to pay for what, this is a great chance just to kind of talk through. Steve, you mentioned some different types of accounts. So once you've kind of decided who's going to save towards what, maybe a little bit of how much, now it's where do I put these funds?
Exactly.
So it does depend too, like where you put the money, what flexibility you have. We want to save this money for college. So the first question, I guess, is what do you want the money to be used for? Now that you've decided who's going to fund or how much, do you want this money to only be used for college? If the answer to that is yes, then probably the best answer or the best account for that then would be the 529. Can you talk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, so when we kind of got into that question with clients and they said, yes, these funds are just used for college or we've earmarked them for that purpose only, the 529 account makes the most sense. So each state, I think even all states, offer some type
Almost
of
all.
college savings plan that they custody. So Illinois has a really good plan. So you would open the account in your name for the benefit of your child. And when you make that contribution, if you live in that state, they often provide a tax deduction or subtraction on your state tax return. So there's some tax savings that happens when you put money in. The account grows tax-free. When you pull those funds out to pay for the tuition, room and board, other qualified educational expenses, those are completely tax-free. So as long as you're using it for the purpose that the account's set up, it works perfectly.
Yeah. one of the great things too about the 529 is if you have one child, you start putting money in there, it's in their name. This is where a lot of times we'll get questions from parents, like early parents, we're going to have a child, what should we be thinking about? So the child has to be born, you need a social security number to open these accounts. So just so you know, timing, you got to wait till they're born. Once you have the social, you can open that account. And if you have more than one child, now you can open this account, and let's say you're getting close to college, you have a lot in there, or that child gets a full scholarship, you can change the name on the account so another child can use it. So that's one of the nice benefits of that.
That's one flexibility in this account that none other offer, is that you can change it for if it's child number 1 gets a full ride or doesn't go to college, you can change it to child number 2 or child 3, or if yourself or another family member. There's a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah, exactly. Because we do see parents that want to go back to school after their kids,
if
whether
there's
that's
still
higher
funds
education.
left over. Yep,
yeah. Exactly.
And then the other question is, well, can I overfund it? What happens if I put too much in and don't end up using it all? You can take it out, any tax savings that you would have gotten. So you would pay the tax on the distribution, potentially a 10% penalty on that, but it's grown this whole time tax-free.
So that's the 529, which is that is what we kind of say. If you are saving for college specifically and only, then you can put the funds there.
There are some flexibility where you can use it for K through 12, up to $10,000 a year under current law. Some of the states don't recognize that, so they consider that as taxable income, but that's a different conversation. So it isn't exactly just for college, but that's what we earmark it for.
Yeah, and I guess while we're on the 529 topic, people will also ask, do I have to open the 529 in the state I live in? And you don't have to. For example, for the longest time, Illinois didn't have a great plan. So people would actually open a different state's 529 so they had better investment choices.
Yep.
But now Illinois does have a great plan. So ideally, you would want to use it in your own state for the state tax benefit if there is one.
That would be the reason to, yeah. If underlying investments or performance is good too. Another
so
question we
good
get
choices.
will be, Grandma and Grandpa live in Kansas. They want to fund this too. Can they do that? Yes, they can, but because they are not living in Illinois, it's going into an Illinois plan. They don't get the tax deduction. So could they write the check to us? We make then the contribution and receive the benefit. Yes, that's a way around that.
Exactly.
But the way it works is the state that you live in, if you open an account there and you fund it, then you get a state deduction.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where if you're funding an account in the state you live in, you want to be sure if there's a tax benefit that someone's getting that. So just like you said, if mom and dad want to give money, but they're in a different state, have them send the money to you first, and then you put it into the account so you can get that tax benefit.
Yep. So that's specifically a college savings plan.
Yep, exactly. So that's the 529. So this is also just on that because it's between states. Sometimes people fund it in the state they live in, and then they move and find out that state has a good plan too. You can switch between plans. This is where you need to be really careful. You need to work with an accountant. You need to be sure that you know the different, because if you got a tax benefit when you put money in and now you're changing it to another state, you can't get the tax benefit. We talk about this in tax planning. You can't get that tax benefit again. So this is where you need to be careful when you're moving money if you did get a benefit, but sometimes you lived in a state where you didn't. And so now's a chance where you can.
Yeah, so like Illinois specifically, if you have contributions that you made in another state, you can roll over that plan to Illinois. Any contributions, not growth, but contributions you made, you get benefit in Illinois now. However, some of these states, if you got the benefit there and then rolled it over, they want to recapture that benefit they gave you.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some planning, there's some components there that are probably too detailed for this conversation.
Exactly. That's just where this I think just highlights though, as you move, as people are more mobile now, it's something that before you make a change, be sure that you're doing the planning first so you know the benefits, that there's a reason that you're making that change.
Yeah.
So
talk with your financial advisor, talk with your accountant, make sure that you know what's going on before you do it.
Yep, exactly. You never want to look back and say, I should have known this. That's the stuff. Plan ahead. So that's the 529. That's really specific to college funding. It's very popular for that. There's a couple others that you mentioned. So you said, what if I want to save for college or for something in the future. I want to give my child money, but I don't necessarily want them to have to use it for college. I don't need it to go just for that. What if they get a full ride scholarship that they could use this on a first-time home purchase or something?
Yeah.
Then we would say the custodial account, right?
Yeah, we would either say save it in your own account that you then kind of gift them in the future.
Yep.
There's some gift rules that we have to worry about, but you could also open an account for them that becomes completely theirs when they turn 18 or age of majority, maybe 21 in certain states. And that money can be used for anything. College is one, but it could be a down payment, a car. The purposes are unending.
Yep. So that's the nice thing about that custodial account. Now, one of the tricky things is it is a custodial account. So that means that you are naming a minor, that's their account. You are the custodian on the account, so you're the parent, until they reach the age of majority. Now, in Illinois, the latest that could be is 21. It can be 18 or 21. Every state's different. But this is where at those ages, when they reach the age of majority, that money is theirs. So if you now picture yourself back when you were 18 and 21, and now let's say this is a large amount of money that's in here, could you have spent that money wisely, or would you go and blow it on different things? So this is where a lot of parents will kind of say, wait a second. Now, I've seen this done well. I've seen kids inherit custodial accounts really well, and then I've seen them also just blow the money. So I actually have seen this done different ways or handled, good and bad. And so this is where I think as a parent, it's really you helping them think through. If you choose the custodial account, it's knowing at some date, we're going to help them walk through, if this money becomes yours, how are you going to use this? What's the best way to use it? So it's really an opportunity to kind of help them think about this money too.
Yeah, it becomes a teachable moment. I think if you're teaching your child about money when they turn 18, I'll be a little harsh. Maybe you failed as parenting in teaching them about that. You should be teaching them along the way so that they know how to value money. They know how to value hard work. They know how to value savings so that they appreciate it and don't just spend it foolishly.
Yeah, I think it's hard because that's where it can go bad, but it can also go really well. So it's kind of fun. I guess if we're answering, we've got these different types of accounts we just talked about. If we're answering this, we chose to use a custodial account for Emma. So knowing that, okay, there's money in there. So now we're kind of knowing, okay, we have this 18-year clock, right? Or 21 for her, 21, where, okay, when she reaches 21, by then we should have taught her something about money. And along the way, as it's approaching, knowing college expenses, it might all be used by then because, she needed it for college already when she was 18, but maybe not. And so that's where we're thinking about it, talking about it more as that comes.
Yeah, and just to give some more context, this is a non-educational, non-retirement account.
Yep.
It's a custodial or a brokerage account. So it is taxable. So any investment performance, any growth, any gains from sale of stocks within it, those will produce income that need to be reported, potentially tax implications on returns that need to be filed. But the money, because it's not for those purposes, can be used for anything along the way too.
Yep, exactly. So that's what we chose, which the exciting thing is if she gets a scholarship that pays for college, now that could be used for something like a first-time home purchase or a car, things like that along the way. So that's kind of exciting, and that was really a combination of our experience. I paid for mine, you had scholarships, and so this is kind of meeting in the middle where we don't get all the tax benefits, but we like the flexibility that's bringing. All right. Emma, did you have any other questions?
So another question I had was, when the kid is younger, what if they want to go to a school, let's say K-State, for example, but then when they're older, they want to go to, let's say, Northern Illinois or something?
That's a good question. Yeah, so when we've talked about this, we've kind of talked about how, okay, if we put it in this type of an account, so a 529, if we answer this now for the different types of accounts we just talked through, a 529, we could use this for any college. So even if it's in an Illinois 529.
In-state, out-of-state, private, public.
We could use it for any school. So it's really flexible. So now you could use that account for anything. So now the custodial account, Steve, how would that work?
Yeah, that would be exactly the same. So Emma, you have complete flexibility in your educational choices. So what we would advise you is, do you want to go somewhere close to home, far from home, big school, little school? What is it you want to study, and what schools have the best choices for that? So, for example, I chose Northern Illinois. I wanted a smaller school. I wanted it to be close to home, but I wanted to study accounting, and they had one of the top 10 accounting schools in the country. So that's how I chose Northern Illinois.
Yep. And I think one of the neat things here, I'm just going to talk kind of through like on the financial planning side, all these different types of accounts we're talking about. As parents are thinking through this and as you're trying to decide these things for yourself, this is why we're always talking about all the different options. It's like this is school season, so we try to talk about things that people are thinking about. So this is why if you're thinking, hey, I want to receive this information, I want to know and get tips. This is why we send our clients a bi-weekly email. So every 2 weeks, all the stuff that we're talking about, if you miss something, you're going to get that in your inbox. So if you have not gotten that, you can sign up on our website for a bi-weekly email.
Plus, if this is something that's interesting, these podcasts are also, we have YouTube videos where we've recorded other topics. So if this has sparked any type of interest, there's a lot of resources that we try to put out for our clients and just the general public so that they can be educated.
Yep. Some of the resources I'm going to list here, we're going to put in the show notes. So now as we shift forward, we say, great, this is for people who are saving for college. They've, want to start now and they're kind of putting money towards that so that they can use. Now, a lot of these resources that we have been creating, because there's been a lot of changes around it, are things like the FAFSA or college loans, things like this. There's been a lot of changes recently. So we've been writing about this. Every year we create a blog post where we tell you how to fill out the FAFSA. We've got videos on how to save. So these resources will be in the show notes. But if we just kind of shift toward this, I guess, these college loans now, okay, if that was the route that my students do have or my kids do have college loans, or if you find yourself as a parent, it's not uncommon as a parent to still have student loans. I just want to touch on this a little bit because there are things that are changing, and I think this would help people kind of think about this. So even paying off like your own college, your student loans, this is where there's a lot of planning around this. New loan repayment options. These are things, if you find yourself in this position, this is where I think the planning really does help. So this is where Rob on our team writes a lot about these things, and he's really knowledgeable in these areas. So trying to help people make sure they're in the right repayment program, things like this. So if you find yourself in that, as you're also trying to plan for your own child's education, just know that there's a lot of things that you need to know about. So it's good to get help to actually plan ahead for those. All right, Emma, did you have any other questions?
Okay, so I have one last question. In your opinion, what's the best college to go to?
Oh, boy. All right, putting us on the spot. Okay, I will go first. So I went to Kansas State University, my alma mater. I would go back and do it all over again. So that's my answer still.
And you already heard mine. Go Huskies.
Why would you like to go back to K-State?
Why would I go back? I really enjoyed my classes. I really enjoyed the jobs I had. They actually all led to, even today, a lot of those skills that I learned from them. So just the whole college experience, I really enjoyed, learned, met friends. All of that was just, for me, it was like really wholesome. I really enjoyed it. So I would go back and do it again.
Why would you do it again?
Yeah, a lot of it had to do with my teachers. A couple of them are still there. So class sizes were small, got a lot of attention, and was able to focus on exactly what I wanted to study.
All right, any other questions you have for us?
I think that's it.
Do you feel like you now know how to save for college education?
Yes.
Yeah? It's
Lots
helped
of
you think about it?
options.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, thanks for joining us on the podcast. This has been fun to have you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right. So I do just want to point us to, we do have a recent video that's on education funding, how to think about that, and then also these other articles that we've mentioned along the way, other resources. Steve, anything that you want to add or mention here to kind of close us out?
No, I think there's so much to think about. Starting those conversations personally helps us as advisors give good advice.
Yeah.
So yeah, just think through some of these. If there's other ideas that you have, send us questions. We're always looking to build out our resources, our library. So yeah, if you have questions, send those to us. We're happy to answer them.
And you can send those to podcast@financialdesignstudio.com. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. We hope this has been helpful for you as a parent to kind of think through, how should I even be thinking about this? How do I start that thought? Then how to save for that? What options do I have? And then ultimately you're going to get to how much should I be saving, which is all part of those decisions that you decided to make, that you said, okay, this is what I want to do. Basically, then you're just going to back into those answers. So from there, there's a bunch of resources I've already mentioned. You can find them in the show notes. Filling out your FAFSA, which is going to be coming up, and then also how should parents save for college education. A lot of good resources, but we will also see you on our next podcast.
Thanks for listening. To find any links or resources related to this episode, check out our show notes. Your host was Michelle Smallenberger, a certified financial planner and CEO. The guests featured are from Financial Design Studio, a team of experienced, fiduciary, fee-only advisors based in Chicago. Anna Lewis is the executive producer of the Behind the Designs podcast. And as always, for more information about Financial Design Studio and who we are, check out our website, financialdesignstudio.com. And final note, no content discussed on this podcast should be taken as financial advice. Financial Design Studio accepts no responsibility for your individual choices. We'll see you in the next episode.